Joining me now on the program, Liberal MP Kelly O'Dwyer and Labor MP Andrew Leigh. Guys, good to see you both. We've heard from Tony Abbott there this morning, providing a credible vision, but no specific costings at this stage. Given the coalition is calling for an election, wouldn't it be more appropriate to have a bit more detail there?
Well, Tony Abbott tonight is going to deliver his budget in reply speech. He's going to hold the government to account for the greatest and largest deficits that have been delivered in our country's history. He's going to hold them to account for the waste and mismanagement of taxpayer dollars. He's going to hold them to account for their borrow, tax and spend policies. But he's also going to present his alternate vision for the future of our country. He understands that people are more concerned about growing Australia's prosperity than they are about protecting people like Craig Thompson and Julia Gillard in their own jobs.
It is fair enough, isn't it, Andrew, at this point when an opposition doesn't have all the resources of Treasury, and we don't know when the next election's going to be. It could be at the end of next year. There could be another budget before then, that they don't provide every bit of detail on costings. Previous oppositions haven't done that as well.
Well, previous oppositions actually have, Kieran. I mean, if you look at, say, Kevin Rudd's budget reply speeches, if you look at some of Kim Beazley's, they are setting out policy ideas and talking about how they're going.
Costings and so on.
They're certainly committing to promises. They're saying new things about what they would do, and that's what a good budget reply speech should be. I really hope it meets the standards that Kelly has set out, but I fear that it will be like the budget reply speech of last year, full of bile and invective, talking down Australia. And the coalition really needs to come clean with the Australian people about how they're going to pay for their promises. They have a $70 billion black hole because they don't want to tax miners and they don't want to tax big polluters. And they're constantly saying no to revenue-raising measures, but then they want to spend across the board.
On their government's credibility when it comes to this surplus, that's fair enough to question that, because it's very slender, $1.5 billion. And yesterday, as an economist, do you feel comfortable with the Treasurer saying he will deliver a surplus regardless of what happens internationally, regardless of the impact on revenues? It seems just quite a massive commitment to make, really, when you don't know what's going to happen over the next 12 months.
The surplus commitment is the right one to give.
But we don't know what's going to happen in 12 months.
Well, the question for those who say that they wouldn't run a surplus is how big a deficit would you run? Well, when do you plan to get the budget back into the black? But we have said we're moving the budget back into the black. That puts downward pressure on interest rates, and it means that we are, as we behaved as Keynesians in the downturn, unlike the coalition, we saw it appropriate to borrow money to save 200,000 jobs, tens of thousands of small businesses, and now on the upside we need to continue repaying debt, and we're doing that while investing in super fast broadband, national disability insurance scheme, dental scheme, and putting out a school kids bonus, $400.
On the school kids bonus, I want to ask Kelly about that, and you can comment on the other things as well if you like, Kelly, but I do want to ask you about that. Your members, your family constituents in Higgins, do you think that they'll use it on the pokies?
Well, first let me just respond to what Andrew just said there, because this government is actually spending $100 billion more than we spent when we were in government. That's what they've added to the budget bottom line in their spending. More than that, they've brought forward spending, they've cooked the books, they've pushed other spending out, and they've taken over $100 billion off budget. So this idea of a fictional surplus is just that. It is completely and utterly fictional. Wayne Swan couldn't actually accurately predict the deficit. It went from $12 billion and it was actually delivered at $44 billion.
And the kids bonus.
The kids bonus. I mean,
what will the
kids bonus is just the kids bonus. Let's be very real about this. This is just a carbon tax cash splash, because they recognise that
facing pressures when it comes to school costs and those sorts of things. Won't they welcome the extra money?
If the government was actually serious about taking pressure off families, they would abolish the carbon tax. This is going to be the biggest hit to Australian families and businesses that this country has ever seen.
This idea that you can
the school kids bonus is not a school kids bonus. It's got nothing to do with education. It's got everything to do with trying to quickly dish out cash to try and give a sugar hit to people before the carbon tax hits. Australians are not so stupid.
Andrew, I'm sorry, we did have Peter Garrett on this from the Labor's perspective. I'm going to move on because I've got a few other issues. Peter Costello, have you heard about a comeback?
Look, Peter Costello.
You replaced him in the seat of Higgins.
Peter Costello, Kieran, is a highly respected and honest man, and he has categorically denied Michael Kroger's latest conspiracy theories. And you know what, Kieran? I believe him. Peter Costello is the sort of person who stands in great contrast to Wayne Swan. He repaid back $96 billion of Labor's debt. He delivered a $20 billion surplus. He provided for the future by putting in place a future fund.
Has Michael Kroger been the one telling Liberal MPs about this?
Look, you know, Peter Costello has been absolutely categorical in his comments in the paper today. Absolutely categorical. And, you know, I'm more than happy to talk about his record compared with that of Wayne Swan, because Wayne Swan, of course, talks about delivering surpluses, but simply really dreams about them.
Did you hear at the time Peter Costello was even contemplating a return?
Peter Costello has categorically denied that this ever took place. And he is a very honest man with a very strong reputation. He has been very clear. And, you know, the whole thing has been fantasy that's been put about. And, you know, there's nothing in it, Kieran.
So he wouldn't be welcome back?
There's nothing in these comments. Absolutely nothing in them.
Okay.
It does remind you, Kieran, of when Peter Costello was asked about Tony Abbott's aptitude, and he says, well, I trust him in everything except economics. And I think that is the situation that Peter Costello finds himself in, a coalition which is now walking away from so many of the market-based reforms, walking away from the emissions trading scheme the coalition took to the 2007 election, walking away from fuel rebates, which Peter Costello introduced to Parliament in 2003, backing off the bipartisan costings, the Parliamentary Budget Office, which Kelly supported, and the coalition has now walked away because they don't want the budget scrutiny. They're going back to, again, getting accountants. Last time, of course, their accountants were fined for saying they'd done an audit on the coalition costings when they hadn't, in fact, done an audit. And so the coalition, I think, is walking away from the economic credibility that they once had. I mean, Peter Costello, to his credit, pushed through a major tax reform in the GST. Mr Abbott is just no to absolutely everything, including good market-based reforms.
Do you think Peter Costello misses politics?
Peter Costello is very happy doing what he's doing right now, and he has made a categorical statement about this. You know, it's complete fantasy, Kieran.
Okay, well, let's look at the Craig Thomson matter. This statement's going to have everyone looking at it in a couple of weeks. The government rests on this, doesn't it? This statement convincing Rob Oakeshott, Tony Windsor, that it's a viable defence.
Well, Kieran, there's some pretty ugly stuff in this report, but as difficult as it is, I think people need to remember that Mr Thomson, like other members of the public, is entitled to a presumption of innocence. He is entitled to have these claims tested in court, not to be tried by parliamentarians.
Okay, Kelly, quickly, there's another issue I do want to touch on. We've only got about a minute and a half left.
Sure. Just on that, though, I mean, he's been spending HSU money, according to the report delivered by Fair Work Australia. Now, of course, he's spending ALP members' money on his legal fees. And Julia Gillard knew all about that because she has people on the National Executive who approved it.
And the Obama comments overnight. This is a very different issue, but does this change the game, do you think, Andrew? First to you on same-sex marriage. President Obama says that he supports it now. Should Julia Gillard follow suit?
I thought President Obama's words were beautifully chosen and spoke very much about the people that he's consulted with. I met with 3 religious ministers yesterday who support same-sex marriage. My position is the same as President Obama's. The Labor Party's decided to have a conscience vote on this. I think the coalition should do the same. At last I heard there was a conscience vote for backbenchers, not frontbenchers. What, do coalition frontbenchers not have a conscience? I don't understand this position from Mr Abbott.
Andrew Leigh and President Obama in the same breath. I've heard everything now, Andrew. That's very, very modest of you. Look, the coalition has a very clear policy we took to last election. We don't see the need to change the Marriage Act. That was the policy we took to the last election. That's a policy that we'll be taking to the next election.
All right, Kelly and Andrew, thanks a lot for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
That's all for AM Agenda. Thank you for your company. I'm Kieran Gilbert. See you soon.